Hey everybody, Mike with Games Play Badly, and on today's episode of Session Zero, I have Chris from Status Effect Games. We've talked to him before, and he's back with even more awesome creations. Now, one of his creations is already out there. It's called Dungeon Drop-Ins, and that relates to dungeon elements such as mazes and traps and puzzles. So that's already pretty awesome, but now he has a Kickstarter where he expounds on that, and it's called Dragnarr's Dungeon Puzzler. So we're going to talk about that as well. As usual, I have my Dungeon Glitch t-shirt on. Matt over at Gemmed Firefly does a great job. If you would like this shirt or something like it, check them out at gemmedfirefly.com. And when you go through and you purchase and you're getting ready to check out, make sure to use our code BADLY15, B-A-D-L-Y 15 at checkout for 15% off your order. Can't wait to talk to Chris about all these amazing projects. That interview starts now. Hey Chris, how are you?
Doing well. Doing all right.
It is, everyone kind of giggles when I do that because we've been talking for 15 minutes before I even start the interview. But last time we spoke on camera was for One Night at the Inn, and that was last April. Can you believe it?
Yes. Yeah. It seems like ages ago, but yes, I can believe it.
So your new project, which I've had the privilege of looking at and kind of going through, is something called Dungeon Drop-Ins. So why don't you explain to everyone what that actually is?
So it is a more or less rules agnostic book about for game masters, for them to insert dungeon rooms into any larger setting they might have already created. So for example, you might have a dungeon all set up, but you have one generic room that nothing's in. Well, you can very quickly open up this book and find a room that fits in your dungeon, and it adds an extra puzzle or an extra encounter. And it's also very good to as a stopgap if your players kind of go on a tangent, if they go off the beaten path and open a door that you didn't want them to open, figure a way past a barrier you created that you didn't want them to get past. It's really good for that because you can kind of scope out the book ahead of time and think about, if I ever need this room, I can pop it right in there.
Right.
And so it's really for that.
Yeah, they're incredibly creative because you what you have with each drop-in is flavor text. You have a map with a key. You have all, obviously everything to find there. You have any monster stat blocks that you have with an encounter. And then you also have any treasure that you may find in that room. So it really is a turnkey solution for any DM if they want to go ahead and use this in their adventure.
Right. Yeah, all the encounters can actually be like one-shot encounters. You could build an adventure around them, so they are more or less complete in every hopefully conceivable way. But the original intention was to use it to just insert it in case something comes up and you're like, oh no, I need a room in this dungeon. It was for that, but they're complete encounters, so you can definitely build an adventure around each one of these if you wanted to.
Yeah, they're very well done. I mean, my favorite I think that I read was the not to give too much away, but there's a gelatinous cube room which I found it was delightful in its inception and in how you describe it. So
yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I actually got that idea is born from one of the 5th edition manuals, or one of I don't know. I have lots of books, but I'm pretty sure it was one of the official Dungeons and Dragons books, and they mention it very casually that evil lord might use gelatinous cubes to specifically as like their pets to clean up their messes in their dungeons, but they don't ever flesh it out. And as far as I know, I've never encountered anybody else that fleshed it out. So I basically created an entire encounter based on gelatinous cubes going through and cleaning up a room, as like a dungeon trash pile, so to speak, that they can clean up, and kind of figured out what that would mean for players who encountered it. So.
Yeah. Again, very creative. I think they're easy. They're an easy read. They're an easy concept. And what I was thinking about using them for is, again, a stopgap if something happens where I don't have something written for a certain area of the dungeon because they've gotten there before I was ready.
Right.
Or if I don't feel like going through and designing something myself, I can
Right.
go to good old Chris, and Chris will have something fabulous that I can use and take complete credit for.
Right. Right. And I, as I was, when I'm running games, every once in a while you think, oh, tonight the characters will get ready to go to the dungeon.
Yeah.
And then 5 minutes into your session, they're like, hey, let's just go. And you're like, well, I didn't write anything yet. I have this map, but I don't have anything in there,
Yeah.
So that's always a problem. So right now I have the privilege of being a player right now and not a game master. So our group is, we are the most naive adventurers. That's kind of what we're playing. And we never prepare. It's kind of our MO now, is like, we never prepare. We just go, oh, we have to go get that guy. Let's just go. We're not going to go buy new equipment. We're not going to rest. And we just go, and it gets us in a lot of trouble, which is kind of amusing.
Yeah. Who needs food?
Well, yeah, it's really a war of attrition in our game because we don't rest. We're not resting, and we're not buying extra healing potions. We just go for it. And we've almost all perished because of that multiple times now. So.
Oh, that sounds like something that sounds like something I'd play.
I feel bad for our dungeon master. Yeah, it's rough for him. So
yeah. So this is already Kickstarted, and it is close to fulfillment from the standpoint of production. By the time this video airs, it'll probably also be up on DriveThru and your favorite place to get content.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, it's gonna definitely be on DriveThru. That's where I sell a bunch of stuff, and I'm still trying to get it. I actually started putting a few things on itch as well, the indie game market. So I'm playing with a couple of different marketplaces, but DriveThru is probably the best place.
So besides this, you have some other things in the works, yes?
Yeah, I have too many ideas and not enough time is my problem, and so. I plan on doing something else very soon that I want to launch on Kickstarter soon, which is going to expand on the puzzles that I started playing around with the dungeon drop-ins. I wrote too much, and so I wanted to expand on just different puzzles you could put in a dungeon, all sorts of things like color matching puzzles and just brain teasers and riddles and all sorts of different things like that. So I'm going to do a project just based on those puzzles. And what's nice about it is it's also going to be rules agnostic, because it's just not whatever rule set you're using, you'll be able to put these in. And what's different about it, because I know there are some puzzle books out there that you can get and obviously use, is we're going to create the assets for your virtual tabletop. So we're going to have puzzle grids, sort of like a Sudoku grid or a chessboard that you can, and then have blocks or runes or rings or different colored gems that you can put on these grids so that everybody can build their own puzzle. So the storyteller, the game master, whoever, can create their own puzzles from scratch with their own rule set. And so the book's all going to be about that.
That sounds awesome. Well, I mean, yeah, and you can use it with whatever your favorite VTT is. So
correct. Yeah, it'll be set up very easily. I generally, use Roll20, but it'll be set up that it's all just JPEGs or whatever that you can just import as digital assets and create them right on, I know how to do on Roll20, but and anybody who has, even if you have like a simple Photoshop program, you can create them beforehand and get them right on the screen. So that's the plan. So we'll see how that goes. They've been very successful so far. Like I'm trying to push this out right away because I feel like I'm building steam a little bit, so I don't want to stop now.
Right.
So I'm exhausted, but I'm doing a lot of writing and creating now and like trying to up my game. So we made enough money in the last Kickstarter that now I think I might have to hire another artist, because the artist I have right now is very good, but like I'm giving him too much work, I'm doing too much writing, where it's just like I'm writing so much and like trying to get a lot of stuff done as quick as it, pops out of my head. I'm trying to get it, in the physical world some way. So.
Well, who is the artist that you're using? Because the art in there is just great.
Yeah, it's a gentleman named Dylan Mako. He's from the Pittsburgh area. So luckily through my wife and Instagram, but mostly my wife, we know a lot of artists in the Pittsburgh area. And there's a lot of really great comic book and traditional like fine arts artists here. And so through different people, we kind of hooked up, and he's working out great. He's basically too good. So I've already told him, I was like, somebody else is going to pick you up and I'll never see you again. But so I have to keep paying him more. I'm like, well, if we make more, I got to pay you more because you're doing too good a job. And I told him, I was like, you're doing too good of a job. Like, so we need to, move on to the next thing. So that's the other reason why I'm trying to work fast, because I'm like, I got to work fast. before this guy gets hired by Marvel or something, because he's pretty talented, and he has a good eye for fantasy art, but he does a lot of different, the comic book type art and all sorts of things, fine arts. He does excellent portraits. So.
Now, did he also do the maps in there, or?
No, so I do all the maps, and I'm using a map creating program for that, but I do some small Photoshop changes too, and I'm not very good at Photoshop, but I'm getting better. So this next project I'm doing is really going to test my Photoshop skills, because I'm going to create a lot of the assets, not all of them, but a lot of them. I'm actually going to get Dylan to hopefully create some of that. So do some hand-drawn assets, well, digitally drawn, I should say, and then I'll do some digital drawing as well. But he's the professional artist. I'm just the amateur here. But
well, I mean, yeah, I mean, what a great way to learn, though.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of stress too.
Yeah, it is very stressful. I'm surprised when people like my maps. A lot of people really like my maps, and I check out what everybody else is doing, and I think I pale in comparison. But also, I think I bring like the storyteller perspective to the maps. So there are some map makers that are excellent, and I'm not going to mention any names, but I don't know how to run a story on their map. You know what I mean? It's like so good that I don't know. I was like, that's an amazing Dragon's Lair. I don't know where I would put my character on it on my virtual tabletop. You know what I mean? There's no space for my character. So like, I don't really get those ones. And then there's other ones I think are too basic. So I try to like fall in between somehow, where I'm just like, okay, it needs to look good, but also have room for a battle, and make the grid look nice, so like you can actually figure out what's going on. And so and a new thing for me too is that from Kickstarter backers, not everybody wants, the nicer it looks, the bigger the file size, I mean, like to make a really nice big map. Right. And not everybody wants that, because it's just taking up room on their hard drive. So I'm shocked how many people will tell me like, hey, I'm running games on my Chromebook and I don't have room for all that. So
sure, yeah.
So it's interesting. I don't know. That's something new to me. But then again, even as I say that, we're terrorizing our dungeon master that runs our game, because he said he's run out of room. He's like, I don't have any. I have 50 gigs worth of story on here, and there's some things I don't want to get rid of.
Right.
So now he's running that problem. He's like, I got 100 maps on here, and we might go back to this town, so I can't delete it. And so I get that. So I understand that problem. So, but it's also sort of strange. So.
It is. I mean, it's a form of digital hoarding. I know I Patreon several different map makers, several different people who write, one page mages, one of them, Maps and Quests is another one. There are several people that I actively go up and get the content just to have it, because I don't know when I'm going to need it, but I'm hoarding that content. And so I just continue to need larger and larger storage space. So thank goodness for Google Drive, because I just dump everything up there and I'm good.
Right. Right. I'm about to buy more space on Google Drive, because even this last, like I said, I worked too hard on Dungeon Drop-ins, because I created so many files. I have to actually clean up my computer, because there's just so many. There's a lot of samples and stuff I'm going to end up discarding, but I just created well over 100 maps, a lot of which I'm not using. They aren't even in the book. A lot of ads. I warn people, anybody that does a Kickstarter, it's like, oh, you think you're like hundreds and hundreds of pictures just for ads, and some, again, that you won't ever use again. So it's a trip. It's a lot of stuff.
Sure it is.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just happy you're still creating. And One Eye at the End, I thought was just a brilliant piece of writing and work. It really, for me, as a DM and as a player, it just brought me back to when I first started playing and how important inns were. Inns were important, don't get me wrong. But as we get older, we tend to move away from those kind of what people may consider a trope. And what you did was you took a trope and you turned it into a well-written, fun, reusable piece of lore that, if you're a smart DM, this could be part of your adventure and that you can continue to build off of. So I like what you do, because it's very highly customizable, and I think it's very well done. So congratulations again.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah. My biggest thing is that I want people to use it. So I have lots of books, and I love them, and they look great. And I love the art, and I love the stories, but I don't know how much I use them. But it's always nice to, even if you take one little thing out of each one. but I somehow I'm trying, and that's what I feel like I do. I feel like I'll have one GURPS book or D&D book, and I'll take one thing out of it, and I'll feel really good about that one thing. I'm trying to create books where there's every single page is something you can take away from it, and really use. So I really try to do that with dungeon drop-ins, especially. And the next book, I hope even more so, because like I said, we're going to create a bunch of assets to go with it. So now it'll be beyond maps. It'll be blocks you can put on the maps, the push blocks, and which we didn't talk about much, but push block puzzles and just all sorts of different puzzles and things that you can really get in there and use is what I'm hoping to do with it. So that's the goal.
Every one of the drop-ins has an encounter difficulty that you can vary. So there's an easy, an intermediate, and a hard.
Right.
So that way you can make these as easy or as difficult as you want to, and I'm sure you can customize even further. I mean, DMs.
Right.
But I found that an interesting option.
Yeah, that was really just, it was more of a, like you said, I feel like people will actually take it to the next level, actually make it a lot harder, you know what I mean? But it kind of gets you halfway there. It's like, okay, well, if you want to make this harder, this is what you should do.
Right.
If you want to make it easier, here's some really easy ways to make it easier.
Right, exactly.
Solution. Yeah.
Well, now I did notice that there were some push block type stuff in there. Why don't you expound on that a little bit?
Okay. It's super easy to understand because every nerd I know plays video games. So, and so I use the Zelda example, but in Zelda, there's usually a big block that's blocking your way. That's all. It's a square, it's a cube, and you have to push it out of your way to go through an entrance or an exit. So I just can't think of a time I've ever encountered that kind of puzzle in Dungeons and Dragons or whatever, any sort of sorcery type fantasy game. So I wanted to get that into the tabletop format. And so I created some block assets, which are just pictures of blocks that you can arrange in a pattern to give your players a puzzle, basically. So the seed of that idea, and it has basically everything you need is in dungeon drop-ins. You can get blocks if anybody purchases it, they get the block assets come with the digital book, as well as some maps to use, and then all the ideas and rules you need to make those puzzles work for you. So I have rules for like how strong do you have to be to push the blocks? Can you climb over them? Can you crush somebody with them? All that sort of stuff. But how to make these puzzles enjoyable and challenging. I'm going to expand on that in the next project as well. It's going to be a lot of push puzzles, but also a lot of other sort of different puzzles that you can put together and play with. It's like a toy box, and for game masters, it's really all about, I don't want to give, a module. I understand modules, I like them, but that you have to follow, perfectly every time. I want to give you the tools, the dungeon master the tools to create your own, put this puzzle into your setting.
Sure. Thing. Yeah, I mean, modules get a little railroady.
Yeah.
I've mentioned this in several videos, but we've been playing Tomb of Annihilation for well over a year now, and it is by far probably the most difficult module in D&D to DM. It just it's very expansive. But one of the things that I loved, and I think my players loved and hated, was the amount of puzzle fiddly bits that were in there, especially when you get into a certain city that I won't mention because I don't want to spoil it. But there are a bunch of puzzles there, and it was frustrating for them, but it was a lot of fun for me. I just loved sitting there watching them. They were gnashing their teeth and biting their nails, but it's so I love, that's the reason why this resonates with me so strongly, is I'm getting out of an adventure where those puzzles were integral, and now I have a way to continue on with that kind of theme. And I like to look at everything from every point of view. So even with like the push puzzles, I like to always give an out to players. So if you're playing a character with 18 intelligence, and you want to just roll a check to see if you know how to solve the puzzle, I'm the kind of DM that says, go ahead and roll that check. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not gonna force you to do it. It's not as much fun for me, but I mean, I dislike when somebody who is not very charismatic wants to play a charismatic, bard, and a dungeon master tells them they have to
okay, what do you say? What do you say to convince this guard to let you go? It's like, well, that's the whole reason why we're role playing. I came here to throw some dice.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? So I do like when DMs make you do things like that and it ends up being a funny joke, but then I say, forget that and just roll the roll the dice.
Yeah, I think DMs come from both sides of the street on that one.
Yeah.
So and
Yeah.
really, as dungeon masters, you're reading your group.
Yeah.
So if your group is all role play all the time, then that's the way to do it. If people
Yeah.
are murder hobos, you go that direction. There's somewhere in
Right.
between too. So
Right. So,
well, I'm looking forward to diving more into this. I've gone through probably 3 or 4 of the drop-ins, and I really enjoyed everything. I didn't get a chance to read everything, but what I have is just kind of a sample copy, so it's not the full copy.
right.
So I'll be there waiting with bated breath when everything's released, so I can go get my copy as well. And I look forward to trying to use these. I am transitioning to a homebrew world here in probably the next 6 months, because at the rate we're playing right now, it's going to take a while. But I really want to use all the stuff. When I interview people and they send me stuff, that goes into a folder called resources. And that's what I'm going to dig through when I start doing some homebrew stuff, is use that for inspiration and or throw that out there. So you're definitely at the top of the list with the ins and the drop-ins. So
right. Well, I appreciate that. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I'm trying to do some creative stuff, and it will be completely done by the time, like I said, by the time this interview airs, we'll have it up. I think any day now it's going to be all done.
Perfect.
So,
yeah, I will have all the links and everything below to everything that we're talking about, and let me know if there's anything you need from me or a shoulder to cry on, because it seems like you're gonna be really tired for the next month or two.
Yeah. So in the next month or so, I'm going to try to do another Kickstarter. I have a working title, but I mean, it's Status. If anybody wants to look it up, it's Status Effect Games. We have a website. If you just type that in Google, you can come up. We have several Kickstarter projects that have been successful, which is great. And like I said, I'm just trying to keep rolling on that success and while I can, and keep creating things. So yeah, within hopefully another 6 weeks, we'll have something, either launched or
wow, you're going at a rapid pace here, my friend.
Yeah, I know.
I get the whole momentum thing.
I have all the seeds of the ideas. I mean, I have other stuff I don't want to talk about because I never know what I'm not going to do, what I mean? So that's why I hesitate, but I want to do, I'll throw out some of the stuff right now just for fun. I mean, I want to do like a fantasy mecha compendium. I want to do, this puzzle book. We're definitely doing one secret one. I'm not going to say, but I want to do.
Well, don't tell me everything. I want to be surprised.
Right. I might do a bunch of different things. So there's a lot that I'd like to accomplish, and then I would like to do a full either campaign setting book or a sequential, adventure, a campaign module.
That'd be cool. Yeah.
At some point.
That's a big undertaking.
Yeah. I mean, that was something I thought of doing a Patreon for, and just doing a new episode, monthly of that, and then maybe doing some random content. My only, and I've discussed with the artist I work with, Dylan, about doing a Patreon. The only thing that holds me back is I feel like I would get so tied down to that, I wouldn't be able to mess around and do some other things, So that still might happen in the future. We'll see. So I don't want to be like a one-trick pony with Kickstarter, because right now I have had my most financial success on Kickstarter, but even though my products are on some other websites, it's still kind of on there. I mean, it's nice and I appreciate it, but it's not the same amount that I'm getting from Kickstarter. So
sure, I gotcha.
So I need to figure out something else just in case that falls through, because I want to keep it up as best we can. Right,
exactly. So out of all the encounters in this creation of yours, what would you say is your favorite?
Probably the gelatinous cube maze, and I would guess that it's going to be everybody's favorite, but I'm not 100% on that, but I would say that one. But I did try to make them all different. I hope when you get the full thing, you'll notice that there's at least 2 or 3 that have 0 combat.
So you wrote a lot of this flavor text, which I found really, really wonderful. I mean, was there something there that really you got carried away with that you probably could have written on for hours and hours and hours?
Yeah, it was actually a problem, because I think I set out to write a 40-page book and it ended up being like 60 pages. So so it was a problem, and I would have even settled for 30 pages, but
right.
So I've written quite a lot of material, not only for role playing, but like novels and poetry and all sorts of stuff like that. So
Mhm.
that's never been a problem for me. I don't know if it's always good, but I've done it, you know.
Right.
That's like artist sketchbooks. It's like, here's tons of sketchbooks full of nonsense, but I've certainly put pen to paper and typed so many
Right.
stories up. So yeah, I like doing it. Yeah, love it.
Yeah, but out of the ones that you wrote for Dungeon Dragons, was there something that you really felt the urge that you wanted to expound on, or any of those characters or any of those environments, something that you found a hard time writing for, or not
I think
writing more?
Oh, yeah, I would love to have expanded on the collector and
Mhm.
kind of created it so it's like a kind of like a old miserly creature, sort of like Gollum in The Hobbit, but not maybe not as vicious, I guess. I don't know, but I would like to expand on that character. I think I didn't write enough. I feel about the gelatinous cube maze. I would love to give those the G cubes their own sort of personalities as well. So they're kind of mindless as they would be as monster, gelatinous oozes. They're a little mindless, and I almost kind of feel like they deserve names and should have little personality quirks and
I
stuff
kind,
like
I
that.
kind of, when you go to the gelatinous cube break room in between
Yeah,
cleaning up garbage, I mean, I feel like they're
right.
all sitting there lighting up a cigarette and have a cup of coffee, but that'd be
Yeah,
hysterical. Yeah.
yeah. Well, in the next project, I'm going to bring back the gelatinous cubes, a new version that I don't think anybody's ever seen or heard about before. So it's going to be interesting, and I don't want
That
to tease
that'll
too much about
I know it's gonna be fun. So I know it's
it.
gonna
Yeah.
be fun. I always go to food questions because I'm a bigger guy and I like my
Mhm.
food. When you think of the perfect dessert that you like, what would that be?
I do like desserts. Anything chocolate's great. Anything
Hmm.
chocolate's great. And I have a milk allergy, so I eat dark chocolate.
Hmm.
So it's the really rich dark.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and coffee is my vice too. So dark chocolate and coffee and that sort of stuff, and it's
So like
really,
dark
really great.
chocolate covered espresso beans would work for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. I see dessert's tough for me because I'm allergic to milk. So, but
Yeah.
what people don't realize is if you get a dark chocolate almond milk ice cream, like an
Hmm.
almond milk alternative, it's even chocolatier,
Oh wow.
because the milk cuts away from the chocolate, makes it creamy. You get more chocolate if it's almond milk because it doesn't, it's not all milky.
So I'm not going to grill you any further. I'm going to let you get on with your evening. But Chris, it's always good to talk to you. I
Yeah,
love
yeah,
your
I appreciate it.
creations. And for anybody who is looking for any of Chris's creations, I will have links down below to everything current and past. And I wish you the absolute best of luck. And thanks for coming on again.
Yeah, yeah, I appreciate it. It's always happy to talk to you, and you always ask me the good questions. So
I try.
thanks.
All right. We'll talk soon.
All right, talk to you later.
All right.
Bye bye.